I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. The Star Wars Prequel Trilogy is not very good. I know this might come as a surprise to a lot of you who will go on to say, oh come on, the Prequel Trilogy isn't that bad. Like, I'd go so far as to say that it's good, actually. I would like to point out that those of you who have that perspective are likely benefiting from the combination of lowered expectations generated by Hindsight and the wealth of supporting material that the Prequel Trilogy got afterwards. You have to understand, the lead up to the Phantom Menace was a mania. The 1997 original trilogy special edition, something I hold near and dear, warts and all, had just ushered in a new generation of Star Wars fans in time for the new movies to roll out. There was so much hype leading up to this movie that other movies were advertising it.
If you see only one movie in 1999, see Star Wars.
Everybody was going nuts for Darth Maul and the promise of more acrobatic lightsaber battles and special effects and the origins of Darth Vader, and then it comes out and it was all...
Are you an angel?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Okay, not gonna be unfair to this kid. Everybody's acting in this is wooden, and acting that is this consistently bad is a problem with the director, not the actors. Let's just make that clear. The whole prequel trilogy has moments like this, to the point that I don't think I'm out of line saying that the whole somehow Palpatine returned line is the most George Lucas-ass thing in the sequel trilogy. It was a time when this was all we had to go by, where the mystical elements of the Force, whose notion was that even in a realm of high technology, there are things beyond understanding.
The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force.
Was ripped apart by a single word. Where Jar Jar was sticking his tongue in inappropriate places, where Darth Maul had barely uttered a word, where C-3PO's origins were, okay, if there is one thing I would absolutely change, it would be swapping C-3PO with R2-D2. It makes more sense for a queen to own a protocol droid, and a little kid to make the cute droid with the childish personality, right? Would have turned R2-D2 into this sort of last vestige of Anakin's innocence, and gives the droid's eventual friendship with his son Luke a hint of tragedy. And then we wouldn't need Jar Jar anymore because 3PO's here and he's actually funny, and I mean, is the original trilogy really that great? Well, yeah! Thanks in no small part to people pushing back against Lucas in ways they didn't in the prequels. In the scene where the Millennium Falcon first encounters the Death Star, originally Luke Skywalker was supposed to whine out a really terrible line. One so bad that Mark Hamill still remembers it verbatim.
But we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater than it was on Aquilai or Soas, and what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. And I thought, who talks like this, George?
But Lucas was made to relent, giving us the scene of mutual pants darkening we now know and love.
I have a very bad feeling about this.
Turn the ship around.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The Battle of Yavin, the event around which the entire Star Wars timeline is based, was pretty much cobbled together in the editing room by George's ex-wife, Marcia. At least according to the essay, How Star Wars Was Saved in the Edit. The sequel to that movie, The Empire Strikes Back, has a theme that transcends its story. It is a movie about connections, the bonds that all of these characters share with one another. Yoda and Ben say to downplay them, Vader tries to exploit them, but it is by reaching out to them that Luke is able to resist the pull of the dark side, proving the Jedi wrong. On the other side, while the prequel trilogy tries to have that sort of meaning, it is sadly held down by both its wooden performances and its foregone conclusion. So yeah, the prequel trilogy was largely seen as a bit of a wash, and people were ready to move on from Star Wars. But then, something happened. The prequels were sent to rehab. There's a video by Schaefer Rillis where he talks about how Order 66 became the most tragic scene in the prequel trilogy, as in, it was not that before. Order 66 being the command for the clone troopers to kill every Jedi, the final lever Palpatine pulls to secure his ascension to Emperor. What follows is just that, a scene where people with pew-pew blasters end the lives of people with laser swords. However, in the initial release, this scene kinda fell flat, coming off about as dry as I just described it. I mean, we didn't know these characters, the ones we care about all survive. Who cares about Lady Tank Top over here? But now, the scene actually means a whole lot more. Why? Supporting material. Soon after the release of Attack of the Clones, Genndy Tartakovsky, creator of Samurai Jack, would treat us to The Clone Wars, a series of slick and stylish animated shorts depicting some of the most intense moments of the conflict, basically spanning from the end of Attack of the Clones to the moments leading up to Revenge of the Sith, where Palpatine, still as the Chancellor, is kidnapped. Now, before any of you point out how showing the moments before Revenge of the Sith in separate material is somehow the same as showing the opening to Rise of the Skywalker in freaking Fortnite, first of all, no. Second of all, somehow Palpatine was kidnapped lets them open the movie with an intense rescue scene, which is cool. Tartakovsky's Clone Wars was so well received that they inspired The Clone Wars, a computer-generated show made in the same style, one which would go on to be a wild success, lasting until the sale of Lucasfilm to the Empire and even being brought back to life years later, and then getting its own spin-off that finished recently and spawning even more shows crafted in its image. This is the rehabilitation that the prequel trilogy got. We get to learn more about the good guys and bad guys, more about the galaxy, more about the Jedi who fall to Order 66, and even more about the clone troopers who before had nothing. Clone Wars sees Anakin getting his own apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, a character who gets to be a genuine enigma because, as a new character, her fate is uncertain. She has no foregone conclusion and so is unshackled from the other limitations. But yeah, I am not exaggerating when I say that this stuff carries the prequel trilogy. The idea of Darth Maul being this manipulative mastermind was made whole cloth by these shows. I don't remember a single line of his from the actual movie, if he had any at all. As of the end of Phantom Menace, he was just a thug working for Darth Sidious, who we were pretty sure was dead. But now we know him as the guy who caused unrest on Mandalore and manipulated the young aspiring Jedi Ezra Bridger. For the mixed bag Rebels turned out to be, the ending of Darth Maul's story, I have to say, is one of the best moments in Star Wars. In a single scene, both Maul and Kenobi get closure. Qui-Gon Jinn's legacy is avenged, as shown when Kenobi assumes the fighting stance of his old master, Maul's long-suffering journey comes to an end, and Kenobi himself finally accepts his inevitable future. This is Phantom Menace rehabilitated. I hear people saying that in like 10 years, people will be speaking fondly of the sequel trilogy the same way people talk now about the prequels, and I am here to tell you that in order for that to happen, they would need the same amount of TLC that the prequel movies got. And so far, all we have is this freaking thing. And this freaking thing. I mean, part of this is that while the other trilogies have a span of about 4 years chronologically, more than enough space to fill in the gaps and include new stories, the sequel trilogy takes place over the course of just a few months. There isn't a lot of bone to attach more flesh onto, and with the release of shows like Andor and Acolyte and Young Jedi Adventures, speaking of foregone conclusions, it almost feels like Disney has given up on the sequel trilogy as a path forward. It's kinda sad that the apparent last gasp of the sequel trilogy was a Lego movie made to advertise the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser at Walt Disney World! I mean, what can be done here? You can't really detail much of the events within the timeline, there just isn't enough space for anything but a sort of one-off, and a lot of the actors are aging or gone. I certainly hope they don't attempt something crazy like a prequel to the sequels, as I can't see that ending well in any way. I mean, Resistance is a prequel, and look how that wound up. First season was okay, second season was absolute trash. On the other hand, Star Wars Visions was great! I wish they'd pull more from that well. The short by Aardman Animation is the perfect template for a show aimed at kids about the New Republic. The Star Wars Resistance show may have been awful, but the ship designs were fire, filled with the creativity and freshness that the sequel trilogy desperately needed. See that? I like these! Positive feedback on something new! Please do something with this! So, again, if you're younger, I can get that you might think it's strange that many older Star Wars fans aren't that fond of the prequel movies. But, like I said, most of us remember a time when all of that extra support did not exist, where all we had was Jar Jar and Dewitt and sand. Hello there. Spinning's a good trick. I have the high ground. This is where the fun begins. Obi-Wan's gonna kill me. Unlimited power! What about the droid attack on the Wookiees? The dark side clouds everything. That was all we had. All we had.